Chapter 19. The Joy of Parental Love. While Nanda Maharaja was giving protection to his transcendental son in this way, all of a sudden there were drops of tears in his eyes and he became overwhelmed with joy. Nectar of Devotion, Chapter 43. One day, as we sat on his porch, I said to my father, "I need to tell you something that happened yesterday after the yoga class, something that confused me." He set down his herbal tea. "What happened?" "I was teaching a prenatal yoga class, women who are about to become mothers. After the class, one of them stayed behind and asked me about spirituality. She said, 'I'm about to have this baby, and I'm overwhelmed by how much I already love something I haven't even met yet. Is that how we're supposed to love God? As our child?' I paused, and I didn't know what to say. 'Cause everything we've talked about so far, servitude, friendship, assumes God is above us, superior to us. How can you see the Supreme as your dependent child?" My father's face broke into a radiant smile. "That's the question that opens the door to Vatsalya Rasa, parental affection. And yes, not only can you love God as your child, but for some souls it's their eternal relationship with Him." "But that seems backwards," I said. "It reverses everything," he agreed. "And that's exactly what makes it so profound." Defining Vatsalya Rasa. Vatsalya Rasa is the ecstatic love that develops into the relationship of parenthood and becomes steadily established. This relationship is founded on spontaneous love of Krishna, characterized not by awe but by a conviction of one's own superiority. Superiority to God? I asked. In love, yes. This love is unique because it reverses the position of control. While the rest of the universe worships Krishna as the supreme controller, the parental devotee is convinced in love that he himself is superior to Krishna and that without being taken care of by such a devotee, he could not possibly live. "But Krishna is self-sufficient," I said. "Of course, it's not literally true. But in the relationship, the devotee's love makes them believe it. This confidence allows the elderly devotees to represent themselves as father, mother, and teacher. They don't see themselves as worshippers, they see themselves as protectors." My father leaned forward. From the passive reverence of neutrality, through the constant duty of servitude, through the fearless equality of friendship, the heart has been steadily purified of material considerations. But even beyond the confidential trust of divine fellowship lies a relationship characterized by the most selfless love, parental affection. "How do you develop this?" I asked. Devotees wishing to develop this mood are advised to follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaja, Krishna's father, rather than attempting to directly become the father of Krishna, which can become contaminated with false ego. The sincere practice of this sentiment is known as Pusti Marga, the path of nourishment, which brings devotional service to the highest standard. The apex of parental affection. The ideal of this relationship, my father said, is eternally manifested in the residents of Vrindavana, particularly Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaja. These two are considered to be the supermost of all elderly personalities. "Tell me about Mother Yasoda," I said. "The depth of their affection is celebrated by great sages." One devotee prayed, "Let me take shelter of the elderly parental devotees of Lord Krishna. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto them for being so kind to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the parent of the whole universe." "So they're offering respect to Krishna's parents," I said, "for being kind to the person who created everything. The paradox is beautiful, isn't it?" Another Brahmana exclaimed, "I wish only to worship Maharaja Nanda, because the Supreme Absolute Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is crawling in his courtyard as his own child." My father found a passage describing Mother Yasoda. Her wide hips were surrounded by silk and linen clothes, and her breasts were flowing with milk because of her affection. After rising early, she would first offer her breast milk to Krishna, then chant various mantras for his protection. She would decorate his forehead nicely and bind his arms with protective talismans, constantly affirming her protective attitude. "She's protecting the Supreme Person," I observed, with complete conviction that he needs her protection. Nanda Maharaja shared this intense, joyful affection. He's described as having hair that's generally black but some gray. His complexion is exactly like the full moon, and he has a beautiful mustache. His pure joy was evident when he was giving protection to his transcendental son, such that all of a sudden there were drops of tears in his eyes, and he became overwhelmed with joy. "That's so human," I said. "So relatable." That's the point. The Vatsalya Rasa is provoked by Krishna's delicate and dependent personal features. Mother Yasoda's affection caused milk to flow from her breasts, soaking her body simply by seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose bodily complexion is just like a bluish, new-grown lotus flower. The body responds to love. Krishna's childhood allure. What is it about Krishna as a child that provokes this parental love? I asked. Everything, my father said with delight. The intensity of Vatsalya Rasa is continually stimulated by Krishna's physical and behavioral traits which appeal directly to parental instinct. Childhood age and appearance. Krishna's affectionate pastimes with his parents are primarily executed during his Kaumra age, up to 5 years. This age is divided into 3 periods. He read from his notes. In the beginning Kaumra, Krishna's thighs are fatty, his body was very, very short, and he had only 3 or 4 teeth coming out of his gums. I smiled. That's toddler age. His dress included tiger nails set in a golden necklace, protective thilaka on his forehead, black mascara around his eyes, and silk thread around his waist. Nanda Maharaja never became satiated by seeing his child decorated with these features, whose complexion is like the new-grown Tamila tree. In the middle Kaumra, his scattered hairs were touching his eyebrows and his eyes were restless. He would speak very sweetly in broken language, pleasing his mother. Broken language, I repeated. Baby talk? Yes. This age, he had a pearl hanging from the septum of his nose, butter on his lotus-like palms, and small bells hanging from his waist. Mother Yasoda would be wonderfully pleased seeing her child in this fashion. Movement and sweet words. The spontaneous movements and characteristics of child Krishna act as intense provocations of love. My father read several descriptions. He was sometimes walking, captured by the finger of his father, Nanda Maharaja, appearing to be almost falling down. Stepping with his legs again and again, crying, sometimes smiling, sometimes sucking his thumb and sometimes lying down flat. That's exactly what toddlers do, I said. Krishna's words are described as sweet and polite. He spoke so politely and gently that it was as if he were pouring nectar into the ears of all present there. Nanda Maharaja and Mother Yasoda would constantly exchange descriptions of Krishna's beauty, confirming that his blackish bodily luster, his eyes tinged with red color, his broad chest and his nice golden necklace were constantly increasing their transcendental bliss more and more. They're like any parents, I said, constantly talking about how beautiful their child is. Exactly. But this child is the Supreme Person. The stealing propensity. Here's where it gets really interesting, my father said. The uniqueness of Vatsalya Rasa is that it allows for and even thrives on actions by Krishna that would be considered faulty in any other context. What do you mean? I asked. Krishna's childish propensity for stealing. When Krishna performs his childish pastimes, his general practice is to break the milk and yogurt pots, throw the yogurt in the courtyard, and steal the cream from the milk. He's a butter thief, I said, amused. And these acts increase the transcendental pleasure of his mother Yasoda. Instead of becoming angry, she would often secretly delight in catching him in the act. He read. One gopi said, "Just look at Krishna looking stealthily toward all sides and slowly stepping forward from the bushes. It appears that he is coming just to steal the butter. Don't expose yourself, or he may understand that we are looking toward him." I laughed. They're watching him and enjoying it. Mother Yasoda experienced maternal ecstasy by smelling his head, sometimes patting his body with her hand, sometimes offering blessings, sometimes ordering him, sometimes gazing at him, sometimes maintaining him, and sometimes giving him good instructions not to become a thief. She tells him not to steal, but she loves watching him do it, I said. Similarly, when Krishna would engage in stealing butter with the cowherd boys, the mothers of the boys would initially plan to chastise them, but as soon as the sons came before their eyes, they lost all of their angry attitudes and became overwhelmed with affection. My father found another passage. Mother Yasoda became wet from the milk flowing out of her breasts and began to smell Krishna's head repeatedly. Krishna's face, covered in dust from the pasturing ground, would be washed by the milk flowing out of the breasts of his mother, purifying him just like the deity is washed during the Abhisika ceremony. Her breast milk washes his face, I said softly. That's so intimate. In Vatsalyarasa, there's no spiritual distance, only the immediate, physical, overwhelming reality of parental love. The fire of separation. But there's another side to parental love, my father said, his voice becoming more serious. The selfless love of parenthood introduces a powerful element of anxiety, as the devotee, convinced of the Lord's dependence, constantly fears for his safety. Anxiety? I asked. But Krishna is the supreme, he can't actually be harmed. The parents don't see it that way. This anxiety, though appearing as distress, is actually the sublime symptom of pure ecstatic love in Vatsalyarasa. Protective rituals and ecstatic fear. Mother Yasoda's love caused her to perform protective rituals, and when Krishna was actually threatened, her ecstasy was overwhelmingly manifested through physical symptoms. He read, when Krishna was chastising Kaliya, the poisonous serpent, in the Yamuna, Mother Yasoda feared all kinds of mishaps, and she was breathing hotly with tears soaking her clothes, almost collapsing. She thought he was in danger, I said. Similarly, when she saw Krishna lifting Govardhana Hill, she became stunned and her eyes were filled with tears. Her throat was choked up by anxiety so that she could not even instruct Krishna. Even though he's holding up a mountain, proof of his divine power, she's worried about him, I observed. Love doesn't calculate. When Krishna was out in the pasturing ground, her movements were slackened, her eyes appeared to be without any movement, and there was a kind of warmth which was bringing her breast milk to the boiling point. Physical symptoms of anxiety, I said. When Krishna was not present in Vrindavana, Mother Yasoda's intense love caused her to lapse into confusion and madness. In madness, she addressed the Kadamba trees and inquired from them, "Where is my son?" My father continued reading. She would also accuse Nanda Maharaja. "You shameless man! Why do people call you the king of Raja? It is very astonishing that while being separated from your dear son Krishna, you are still living within Vrindavana as a hard-hearted father." Nanda Maharaja himself in separation was also an illusion. They're both mad with grief, I said. Even though they know intellectually that Krishna is fine, knowledge and emotion exist separately in love. That's what makes Vatsalyarasa so powerful and so painful when there's separation. The rivers of affection. The intensity of Mother Yasoda's love for Krishna, especially during separation, is so transcendentally potent that it's poetically described as changing the very nature of sacred rivers. What do you mean? I asked. When she traveled to Kurukshetra in pilgrimage to see Krishna after his long absence, a friend described her affection to him. He read, "The milk flowing out of your breast mountain has already whitened the river Ganges. Tears from your eyes, mixed with black mascara, have already blackened the color of the Yamuna. Standing between these two newly transformed rivers, there was no need for your anxiety to see your son's face, as her parental affection had already been fully exhibited." Her bodily fluids transformed sacred rivers, I said. That's mythic language for the intensity of her love. It's more than metaphor. It's describing how her love literally affects the universe around her. Nectar and arsenic. This brings us to the chapter motto, my father said. The central sentiment of this mood is expressed perfectly here. He read slowly. My dear Mukunda, if Mother Yasoda is forced to stand on fire but is allowed to see your lotus face, then this fire will appear to her like the Himalaya mountains, full of ice. Fire becomes ice if she can see him, I said. Conversely, if she is allowed to stay in the ocean of nectar but is not allowed to see the lotus face of your grace, then even this ocean of nectar will appear to her like an ocean of arsenic poison. Nectar becomes poison without him, I said. So her happiness is entirely dependent on his presence. Exactly. This means that Mother Yasoda's happiness is entirely dependent upon the presence of the Supreme Beloved. The ultimate goal is not an abstract principle but a personal relationship with the divine as the source and object of love. The permanence of parental devotion. We sat in silence for a while. I thought about that pregnant woman in my yoga class, the way her hands kept moving to her belly, protecting something she couldn't even see yet. Dad, I said, is Vatsalyarasa considered superior to the other relationships? It's considered a superior attitude because the devotee places himself above the Lord. But superior doesn't mean better, it means more intimate, more protective. Vatsalyarasa, like all the 5 primary mellows, is everlasting and joyfully performed. He continued, even great demigods who attended ceremonies would offer Krishna respect. But Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure, is dependent upon his devotees in 3 ways. In Vatsalyarasa, Krishna is dependent on the parents for protection and affection, proving devotional service to be greater than God because it attracts him. He allows himself to be dependent, I said. Through love. The development of this intimate affection is rare, achieved only by extraordinary fortune or the causeless mercy of Krishna, leading the soul to eternal association with the divine person. My father closed his book. This realization, moving from fearful submission to intimate, nurturing protection, secures the eternal destination where the soul's greatest desire, to love and be loved unconditionally, is ultimately fulfilled. And this leads to the final relationship? I asked. Yes. The protective love of parenthood leads directly to the final and most encompassing relationship, which contains the qualities of all other mellows and is the zenith of the science of divine love. As I drove home that evening, I thought about my pregnant student differently. She'd asked if we're supposed to love God as our child, and I'd had no answer. Now I understood. For some souls, that's exactly their eternal nature. Not everyone is meant to be a servant or a friend or a parent to the divine. But for those who are, that relationship is as real, as valid, as eternal as any other. Mother Yasoda, convinced that Krishna would die without her care, nursing him, protecting him, scolding him for stealing butter, weeping when he's out of sight, experiencing fire as ice when she can see his face and nectar as poison when she cannot. This wasn't delusion. This was love in its most selfless, most protective, most overwhelming form. The Supreme Person who needs nothing, allowing himself to need his mother. The Supreme Controller who controls everything, allowing himself to be controlled by parental affection. The Supreme Beloved who is self-sufficient, allowing himself to be dependent on those who love him as their child. That was Vatsalyarasa. Not a theology to understand, but a relationship to live. And for Mother Yasoda, eternally blessed with the role she was born for, every moment of anxiety about her child's safety was not suffering but the ecstatic expression of perfect love. Tomorrow I would tell my student, yes, you can love God as your child. For some souls, it's the only way they can love, and it's perfect. Not because it makes logical sense, but because in the transcendental realm, love doesn't follow the rules of logic. Follows the rules of the heart. And the heart knows what it knows.